Throughout the years in the Metroid franchise, there are many events that happen for Metroid. Some are considered hype and exciting, while others not so much. But today we are looking at the events that really made a mark in the Metroid franchise, be it an in-game event or a real-life announcement. But before we start this list, there will be spoilers in this list, so do not watch this if you still haven't caught up with the Metroid games, which specifically means Metroid Dread. Now with that out of the way, let's begin with the first and most obvious one, because what better way to start the list than with this. Number 5. Samus Aran is the first playable female human character. Today we take it for granted that Samus is a female protagonist, but sometimes the very first Metroid game was made in 1986, and during this time, gaming as a whole was predominantly targeted towards the young male audience, so the idea of having the protagonist as a female was pretty risky, but the dev went ahead with it anyway, possibly because it was just that wild. Before then, the only other female character that was playable before Samus was Miss Pac-Man, which is part of the Pac-Man franchise, so the financial risk isn't as big. But that is just 3/4 of a pizza with a ribbon tied on top. With number 5 out of the way, let's now go on to the more interesting things with number 4. The year 2002 was truly a special moment for the franchise. Super Metroid was released in 1994, but after that, the franchise have went into a slumber for 8 years. 8 years of waiting feels like it was the end of the franchise, especially with how Super Metroid ended. It kind of feels like a swan song to the series, where space pirates have finally been eradicated and everything has been tied up. Perhaps the series has already come to an end, and it's time to move on. But at 2002, we finally got Metroid news. We didn't just get one, but 2 games. The games are Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime. Metroid Fusion was a return to formula. Well, kind of. We now know that Metroid Fusion is very linear compared to the rest of the series, but regardless, it was the return of the Metroid series that also stepped into a new narrative for the Metroid franchise, giving hope to more Metroid games to come in the future. Funny how that turned out, because it almost took 2 decades for the next game. Also, for Metroid Prime, let's move on to number 3. Number 3. Going from 2D to 3D. Metroid have mostly been a 2D side-scroller Metroidvania genre, but since the introduction of the Nintendo 64, games have started to move over to the 3D landscape, with other Nintendo franchises, such as Mario and Zelda, moving on to the 3D planes with huge monumental success, with the release of Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Even Pokemon had a little bit of dabble with the games, like Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium. But where was Metroid? Metroid didn't make an appearance at all on the Nintendo 64. It skipped a whole console generation, because at the time, the devs weren't confident on how to transition Samus into 3D. This all changed when Metroid Prime was announced. We got a first look in what Samus would look like in 3D, and she was stunning. I dare say even to this day, the first Metroid Prime graphics holds up really well. It was truly a technical marvel of the GameCube era. Number 2. Metroid Prime 4 teaser trailer. This teaser was truly the magnum opus of Nintendo E3 2017. Everything was riding high for the franchise at this moment. A new chapter to the Metroid games, after 2 of the worst games to ever release in the Metroid franchise were released one after the other. Metroid Other M, released in 2010, felt like it put the franchise on hiatus. And then Metroid Prime Federation Force, released in 2016. That was the new Metroid game that released 6 years after a long radio silence for the Metroid games. The worst part was that fans weren't sure if Federation Force's financial failure would spell the true death of the franchise. But come 2017, Federation Force didn't kill the franchise, as we finally got confirmation that one of the main series will be back on track. The hype that day was unreal. Everyone lost their mind. Watching live chat going crazy over Metroid news was something special. Now, what could top this? Let's move on to number 1 then. Number 1. Metroid Prime Pinball. At the time of 2006, pinball games were truly the hype of the gaming world, with games like Zen Pinball making a huge splash in the gaming industry. With how successful the pinball games are, why not release a Metroid pinball game as well? This is where Prime Pinball comes in. It not only took a popular genre and slapped a Metroid coat of paint on it, it also retold the story of Metroid Prime in pinball format, and really made a big splash for the Metroid franchise, much like how the real number 1 is. The real number 1, Samus Talking. when Samus spoke the first time in Metroid Dread. It wasn't really the first time we heard Samus talk, but it was the first time we heard Samus talk in Chozo language. Since Metroid Zero Mission, or Metroid Fusion if you played the Japanese version, we know Samus was raised by the Chozo since she was an infant, but we never saw too many connections of Samus with the Chozos. But this all changed when the Chozo Quiet Robe saved Samus. Not only did Samus reply to Quiet Robe, Samus also spoke back with Chozo language. It was a surreal moment. It felt like it was a confirmation that Samus is truly one of the Chozo tribe. The line she said also felt like Samus was reassuring that she will be carrying the burden of the Thoha Chozo tribe to avenge their fallen comrades and put a stop to Ravenbeak's madness. This came out unexpected as well, as Samus had never said a single word in the entirety of the game up to this point, and never said another word after. When I first played Metroid Dread and saw this part, I had to put my game down and let this moment sink in. It was truly an amazing moment. I can't think of anything in the Metroid franchise can top this moment. And with that, this is the top 5 biggest moment in the Metroid history. Do you agree with this list? Anything you felt was left out? Let me know down at the comments below.